To begin with, I would like to ask a question. Can a strategy set out to empower communities through a series of tactics create adaptable architecture that fulfills both top-down and bottom-up needs, responding to environmental change, allowing all members of society to imagine what if and make it a reality? This question stems from my dissertation, third place from non-space and back. Buried behind Brick Lane lies the Nomadic Community Gardens, a community-led temporary use. Nomadic community gardens experience grassroots growth, providing support networks, allotments, an outlet for local needs, and an opportunity for artistic experimentation. The gardens delivered community benefit through autonomy. However, they were not what they seemed. Situated on privately owned land, they were permitted through a public-private partnership. The garden's life recently concluded, closing to the public at the end of September 2019. While my dissertation analysed the closure, it brought up the complex community issues of isolation and powerlessness that are relevant across the UK, but epitomised by the remote Isles of Scilly. Nomadic community gardens proved how community-led projects could alleviate those problems, shedding light on the empowerment tasks that can be introduced within tactical uses that change people's lives. I stand for all members of society being part of the development process, coming together to imagine real systemic change. Yuval Noah Harari said in his book Sapiens, humans become the most powerful creatures on the planet because of our imagination, our ability to tell stories and to ask, what if? Taking inspiration from this quote and the book From What Is to What If, the project explores a new built environment, initially investigating how the complex socio-political issues on the Isles of Scilly could be resolved by introducing a permanent strategy, top-down plan that permits tactics, grassroots growth. The resulting outcome is a project that empowers the community to create a positive future for the Isles of Scilly while continuing to ask, what if? The Isles of Scilly are a remote set of islands 28 miles north of the mainland. With a tiny population and remote location, they exhibit a reliance on the UK in order to survive. They import everything they need, from building materials to the construction workers that build there. The Isles of Scilly economy depends on tourism as tourists descend on the Isles during peak season, using their limited resources before leaving the local community to see out a wet and windy winter, typical of the Solonian weather. A circular economy is needed. The Duchy of Cornwall holds freeholds to most properties on the islands. Through this system, they are able to generate income from ground rents. The Duchy maintains the medieval feudal system of leaseholds, whereby the residents of the Isles are Prince Charles's subjects and under his control. As all the Duchy's properties on the Isles of Scilly have short leases and ground rents above 0.1%, they are not bought by locals with mortgages. This creates an inegalitarian society, heavily empowering the Duchy of Cornwall, an uncommon characteristic of the 21st century democratic society. This privilege granted to the Duchy of Cornwall distorts the local housing market and has a detrimental effect on the island's economy, creating increased isolation and alienation of an already isolated community. The hierarchy of power must be recentered to create a more egalitarian society. The main settlement on the Isles of Scilly is Hewtown. The town acts as the epicentre of human activity and travel links. However, it holds the greatest risk of damage caused by the sea level rise, due to its low-lying ground and built-for-permanence architecture, preferred by the Duchy of Cornwall attempting to maintain a high degree of completeness in the historic built environment. An adaptable solution is required that can act as a framework for community-led projects that exemplify closed-loop thinking and protect Hewtown from disastrous flooding. In the book Cradle to Cradle, it states, once you understand the destruction taking place, unless you do something to change it, even if you never intended to cause such destruction, you become involved in a strategy of tragedy. You can continue to be engaged in that, or you can design and implement a strategy of change. Strategies have clear-cut goals, producing space with intention as part of a plan. They are actions that elaborate theoretical places capable of articulating an ensemble of physical places in which forces are distributed from the top, an establishment of a place of power. Strategies control all of these places, utilising each and working together to develop temporal relations into spatial relations through compartmentalisation of all specific components. This project incorporates a number of strategic decisions in the form of site selection using Duchy-owned land at risk of flooding, a master plan with a holistic approach to sustainability, and a construction manual for community self-build that permits tactical growth. The specific project design in detail is the Strategy for Tactics Hub, acting as an advertisement for What If, aiming to encourage others to get involved with the scheme. The tactical temporary approach is considered the opposite of the master plan or strategy. Tactics start out from context and the current condition, as opposed to strategies which set long-term objectives from the outset. Tactics benefit from and are reliant on opportunities to work within the interstices of the city. They must be versatile to intervene in isolated actions blow by blow. Tactics have the ability to quickly respond, reclaiming temporarily where overarching power is absent. They utilise time by taking advantage of opportunity to influence the foundations of power. Tactics do not implicit everlasting plans, but the opportunistic work can become valid if they are to remain relevant for long enough. The Solonian community is highly resourceful due to the isolated nature of the Isles of Scilly. This isolation can bring the community together. However, the island lacks community space, especially spaces that inherently breed the community resourcefulness and sustainable thinking that is exemplified individually. In From What Is to What If, the transition process is described as a collective sense of what was possible, discovering that if enough people came together, they could create an entirely new kind of story from the collective experiences of so many people trying to make good and better things happen within the community. Taking inspiration from various literature, the Solonian people and the Primer Brief, focusing on closed-loop systems thinking, this project provides an opportunity for sustainable practices to thrive, creating a less bleak future than the inescapable gloomy reality that exists. This is exemplified throughout the building. The social use collects and stores waste material before it goes through an upcycling process, later being sold in the marketplace, along with flowers, fresh food and herbs that aren't eaten in the co-living kitchens. The market is inspired by the honesty boxes that are scattered around the islands, selling personal items. The food is produced using aquaponics greenhouses that take advantage of rainwater collection, which is distributed throughout the building to all growing spaces. Finally, a residential need is fulfilled. Situated on the upper levels, permanent uses are created to maintain the building's daily needs. The scheme is defined by tactical growth, driven by grassroots needs. These needs interpret the 6 psychological factors of well-being. 1. Autonomy. 2. Personal growth. 3. Environmental mastery. 4. Community relationships. 5. Identity. And 6. Self-acceptance. All distinctly lacking due to the unbalanced hierarchy of power across the archipelago. Each relates to different developmental decisions that are made, ultimately expressed through the architecture. Importantly, the building provides the opportunity for identity, as the building is clad in waste material, decorated as community expression and exemplary of closed-loop thinking. The outcome of this is a modular, adaptable framework designed for self-build and developed by the community. The image shows the building's development after 5 years of growth. The building is a thriving use, following the rules set and site boundaries, while sustaining and carrying out a community vision that capably addresses both strategic and tactical needs. In What Is to What If, it mentions that where once there were societies that served as models for a better future, grand plans, utopias, now there is distrust and dissatisfaction with any form of politics, a sense of powerlessness, edging into nihilism. While the previous page describes a bold and brilliant story of how things can turn out okay, systemic change is needed. This adaptable top-down designed architecture hopes to hold and be the framework for this process to expand and grow to wherever it is needed, while using helical pile foundations to future-proof it for flooding. The hub acts as an advertisement that exemplifies what is possible with closed-loop thinking and encourages others to build similar spaces. The transition movement detailed in From What Is to What If describes how a new way of life in Totnes spread around the world to over 50 countries and thousands of communities, where every group is different and emerges from the spirit and culture of the place, a process that from the outset has invited and supported people's creativity and imagination. This project must be taken further, outgrowing its site, breaking the rules, even venturing across the world to other flooded landscapes. The advancement of projects like this are crucial, forcing systemic change that refuses to cater for the capitalist society that is giving rise to major environmental concerns caused by or contributing to the ever-increasing consumption of goods and services. We must empower people to ask what if? What if people are happier? What if they could successfully close the loop and put an end to the destructive linear systems that exist? What if we lived in a world where everyone had autonomy, was educated equally, could master their environments, and express themselves freely? Thank you.